Welcome back to the ASUG News Studio. I'm Courtney Bjorlin, and I am delighted to be here with two of the great minds in the SAP world. I've got Andrew Juarez. He is the lead basis administrator and DBA for the Coca-Cola Bottling Company. And David Hull, who is the SAP infrastructure lead for the Walt Disney Company. Thank you so much for joining me today, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. So I'm excited to hear about what you're excited to hear about here at Sapphire this year and ASUG Annual Conference.
Okay. Well, last year at ASUG is when they announced in-memory computing, and so I was kind of excited to hear, where they're going with this. It's been a year now. We've been hearing a lot about HANA. So, on my agenda was SAP HANA, a lot of the mobility space. There's a continuous push for mobility. So I kind of wanted to hear where SAP is moving that mobility stuff to. And also stuff like Microsoft Duet. And just in general, it's good to network with folks here.
It definitely is. Is there anything specific with what you mentioned that you really want them to call out details on, that you feel like there hasn't been enough detail around?
I do. I mean, last year when they announced their move toward this in-memory computing, they also announced that they had acquired Sybase. And so, we had just moved to IBM DB2. And, the big question is, okay, so what does this mean now? They're bringing in another database into the fold. What does that mean for just the database platforms in general? And so I was kind of interested to see how they fit it all in. And so I guess pieces are coming out. I'm trying to pick up the technical details behind HANA, where they plan it to go. And so just curious to see where their future is with it.
What about you, David? What are you looking forward to, and what are you looking for more details around?
Also, not to steal his answer, but HANA is something that we've been looking at. We're in discussion right now about whether it warrants a POC. One of the things I'm looking for details on is the use cases for HANA, because there's a lot of bold claims that have been made, a lot of predictions about how in-memory computing can transform how we do business. And so I'm looking for a little bit of insight into what they expect us to be using HANA for in the short term, as well as a roadmap for where it's going long term, because right now the discussions we've had have all been around how to speed up processes that we're doing today. But what I expect from in-memory computing, based on what I've seen from SAP, is that you won't be doing what you're doing today, that HANA is going to enable all new things that you haven't even really considered before now, and they're going to be very transformative. And some of the examples that they've given, I can conceptualize and I can understand the benefit of it, but I'm trying to see how I can apply that to the way we use SAP systems and the way we need access to data.
And I guess one of the other things too is, is cost-wise. Is it cost-effective for companies to, okay, they'll always want the data that fast, but at what cost?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to see how it plays out.
And it's interesting, as you point out, David, what we're going to see in terms of what's next. They're talking to us about these innovations and what's down the road, and then you just catch up with one, and then another one comes out. So it's interesting to hear what they have to say to customers about actually being able to catch up with those trends and settling down.
And on the same note, mobility. So he brought up the Sybase acquisition. They've had time to digest that now, and they've had time to, I think, set a roadmap. And there's been a little bit of competing products between SAP and Sybase, and so I'm expecting to see more of a clear-cut vision as to how we go forward, because mobility is something that we're really struggling with. We've deployed thousands of iPads and iPhones and countless BlackBerries, and a lot of those we've got custom developed applications for, but a lot of them are just general purpose computing devices.
Right.
And they can be effective at that, but I'm really looking to see how we can leverage those devices to actually use in our business processes, which are largely in SAP.
That's really interesting and a great jumping off point for our next question, which is what projects you have going on at your organizations now, and maybe any that leverage some of these new innovations that we've been hearing about here.
Well, right now I think that the current thing that we're looking at, again, HANA is big on our radar scope, just from the standpoint that it always seems like the one thing that they want is they've deployed, like you said, they've deployed these wireless devices. And, I think we're in a culture where people want the information quicker.
Right.
And so these databases are allowing that information to happen. And so, I think right now at the very beginning of while all this is happening is a good time to actually take a look at it, maybe do a proof of concept and just see, okay, what can we do with it? How feasible is it? The other things, we see a lot of projects that are trying to pull data out of SAP and then they do stuff with it. And so we've got some consolidation things kind of going on saying, okay, look, let's take a look at what we're trying to do, maybe pick one product that fits all of them and do some consolidation.
That's really interesting.
So we're spending time taking a look at things that we're already doing and try to be smart about some of the new products. So something like HANA would be, something that would give real-time reporting where we may be doing it out of 3 different places now.
Right. It's really interesting. What about Disney, David?
Well, as I mentioned in the mobility space, we're evaluating some of the Sybase products right now, like Varia and the Sybase Unwired platform, or is it the SAP Unwired platform, whatever. And we're trying to see. I think it's been a struggle to understand a little bit. We see what its capabilities are today, but one of the challenges that we need to see that SAP can address is just simply the dynamic nature of mobility. Every time you turn around, there's either a new device coming out or a new operating system upgrade for existing devices. And so getting, I can look at SAP's vision of how these tools will work, but it's a little challenging to think of how they'll keep up with this fast pace of innovation in mobility. The other thing that we've got going on internally is a real push toward how we can more effectively utilize Solution Manager. We are trying to become a, whether you want to say a best run environment, and from an infrastructure standpoint, Solution Manager has a lot of tools that we can leverage to help improve the efficiency and the monitoring of our SAP environment. And we're right on the verge of a brand new version, which also some really interesting new features have been announced for CIO dashboarding and better capabilities in end-to-end monitoring. And those are something that we're really looking toward. What can it do for us? Because I think there's a lot of value there, but we need to see how it works for us.
Excellent points. And to finish up here, I thought maybe we could talk about some career advice for our Basis administrators and DBAs out there. Cost structures and cost concerns and just the pace of technology has really evolved the role a lot over the last few years. And I'm wondering, as 2 successful people in the field, if you could lend some advice to people listening out there about what skills to foster to keep up, what's really important to know, and just how do you really evolve yourself to be the Basis administrator and DBA of tomorrow?
Well, I think one of the things is that we've seen it with when we moved to DB2, for example. They introduced this DB2 cockpit where you can do a lot of the database management within SAP. So what we've been doing at Coke is to have some of the Basis folks actually do the database monitoring. And because now it's all integrated, they're able to take the load off of what a traditional DBA has been able to do. So for them, I think they need to really concentrate on working on learning some more of those DB2 skills or database skills so that they can progress their skills. I don't think we're going to get away from they're no longer going to be separated. The push is to integrate them, so they really need to keep up with that. And also, Solution Manager. With Solution Manager, I've seen some demos of the new 7.1 that's coming out, and there's a lot more of the end-to-end. So I think in the past, Solution Manager has been, we need it, but we don't really use it a lot. I think what I've seen now is that we're going to end up seeing a lot of people using it. And so I would definitely encourage the Basis folks to use it, integrate their systems to it, and help them monitor.
That's really interesting. What do you think, David? What's your advice here?
I would say if I'm giving some individual advice, one of the things that I would say to make them more effective is to understand what it is that their customers and their stakeholders are expecting from them.
Mm-hmm.
I think as technical people, it's too easy to get caught up in the technologies and then forget sort of why you're there and the function and the role that you're providing. I think that if you talk to the stakeholders, the application owners, some of the business users, and ask them, it's good to get a different perspective of what is it that they expect from a Basis person. What do they want to see them providing, and then be able to focus on those things. And I would say the other thing is to continue to broaden your skills. We have these silos of Basis and DBA and network and ABAP and everything, but the more you can understand about all of those different areas, the more you can make yourself effective in a Basis role. It's not about just understanding the T codes that Basis administrators use, but it's about understanding how applications work, how they interact with the database, with other applications, how the ABAP code can be optimized, or when it runs into problems, those sorts of things.
Well, that's excellent points, and thank you so much for joining me today, gentlemen. This was a great interview, some great insight here. Next up, my colleague Thomas Wilgum will speak with Jim Shepard, so tune in for that. I'm supposed to talk leisurely about the weather.